Thanks for joining us today for the I and Kind podcast. Ethan is out today, so I'll be filling in as host. I'm Everet, and joining me today is my co-host, Cole.
Hi, Everet.
How are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Living the dream, can't complain.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Stand for Kind. Take a stand against bullying in your school and help spread kindness and positivity by visiting www.standforkind.com.
As teens, the face of adversity is everywhere. It can be in the faces of teachers, parents, peers, and even in the mirror staring right back at us. Sometimes the adversity we face is totally out of our control, and sometimes we ourselves are the cause. Khalil Gibran said, "Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls, the most massive characters, and seared with scars."
We would like to welcome today's guest to the podcast. He's a military veteran, a speaker, a trainer, a global resiliency advocate, and an author of the book, Rerouting Resilience Tools and Tactics. Please welcome to the show, Duncan Kirkwood.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Duncan.
Of course, right at this moment, my camera starts acting up. So, right on cue for adversity talks. I can hear you, and I'm happy to be here on this platform with you all. This is a great opportunity, and I love the work that's being done. I love the work that you all are doing because as teens, I can remember we didn't talk about this stuff. It was kind of like, good luck, make it through high school, right? So the fact that there's an organization that's dedicated to really lifting up teens, supporting you all, giving you tools and knowledge and resources to build a type of ecosystem in education communities that is conducive to learning, to self-growth, self-development is just incredible. So I'm happy to be here with you both.
We're happy to have you, man. So I want to ask, what experiences in your life led you to become a global advocate for resiliency?
Yeah, lots of them. So I guess the first main reason I became like this resilience person was when I was in the Army. In 2012, while I was serving in the military, we had more soldiers die from suicide than die in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so for the military, that was like a huge turning point. Like you can't sustain a fighting force with that type of, self-inflicted harm. So they ramped up their suicide prevention program. They ramped up their resilience program, and they trained officers like me to become what were known as master resilience trainers. So what we would do is go to units and train soldiers to become more resilient, right? But when I got out of the military, I'm like, man, that training was pretty good. That would be good for like an everyday person. But, like most people, I've got a good idea and I don't do nothing with it. Right. So for years, it kind of sat there till I started doing some professional development myself. At the job that I had, we were going through like Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I had just finished reading The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And like, I'm just going like down the rabbit hole. I read like Freakonomics and In Search of the Miraculous and the Celestine Prophecy. Like I'm like going down this rabbit hole of like being and purpose. And I'm like, why aren't more people reading these books? Like, why isn't everybody reading these? You would be so much happier if people read these books. So my mentor told me that the reason is because the average person, they're focused on living. They're focused on surviving. They don't have time to dive into lost my video again. I haven't even moved. The average person doesn't have time to dive into the super deep metaphysical world of being and ego and purpose and everything. They're living their life. They're parenting. They're working. They're going to school. They're going to college. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take the Army resilience training. I'm going to take the Army resilience training, and I'm going to take this kind of personal self-development training and make it into something that the everyday person could use to become more resilient. And so that was the catalyst for me writing my book, Rerouting Resilience Tools and Tactics, and me going on to like really over these last 2 years, leaning in to doing resilience training all over the world, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah, really cool. So on your website, it says to create change, it takes a level of mental agility and a strong ability to bounce back in the face of adversity. How as teens do we develop that mental toughness to bounce back?
So here's the good news, right? Children, middle school age kids and high school age children are actually more resilient than adults. So younger people are actually just more resilient, all right? The problem is that young people don't really understand what are the things that are making them resilient. right? So you don't really process how you're getting through these difficult times and these setbacks. And so what I try to do is help pull out the themes of what young people are already doing, right? So like as teens, let me give you a perfect example. Have either of you two ever really failed a test? Yeah. Like you studied really hard. You wasn't playing around. You wasn't playing Madden. You was actually studying, right? And you gave it your all and you just bombed. Has that ever happened to either one of y'all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Me too. But what did you do? Right? Did you give up on school? Did you quit school? Did you decide, you know what? College ain't for me. It's over, Mom. Sorry. Right? No, you just said, okay, maybe you got on punishment. If you was in my house, you might have got a butt whooping, but whatever. Right? But you studied, you went back at it, right? And you did some extra credit, or you retook the test if you could, or just worked harder for the next test, right? You just kept going. That's resilience. Right. But I got to train young people to have that muscle at every stage of their life. Right. So when it comes to a relationship or a breakup, or your friend circle breaks down, or you're having issues at home or in your community. Right. That same idea. There was a failure. Something horrible happened, but I picked myself up and kept going. Apply that same energy to all those different facets of life. So that's what I really try to get young people to understand is you already do it. It's natural for young people to just keep going. But what happens is when it comes to tests, young people, they're like, man, I hate taking tests. So if they fail, I mean, it sucks, but they keep going. But when it comes to like falling in love or parent stuff or trying to get into college or whatever, they take it as such a personal slight, like they're broken when it doesn't work out. Right. And we got to break them out of that. I got to break that paradigm of thinking where you're tying your value as a person to things and titles and roles, because that's not healthy. So what I tell young people is, listen, get a great education, get a master's, get a PhD, get a mansion, open 5 businesses, get rich, fall in love, and get everything you want. Right. But don't tie your value as a person to external things. Right. So both of you are hosting the podcast. I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm a speaker. This is what I do, right? So both of you guys are hosting this podcast. If I buy one of you guys a t-shirt from the Gap, and I say, here is a t-shirt, you guys were such great hosts. I say, your name was Cody, right?
Cole,
I'm sorry. So here, Cole, here's a t-shirt from the Gap. You're like, hey, thanks, Duncan. That's awesome, right? And then tell me your name again.
Everet.
I say, here's a t-shirt from Versace. Right? I get you a $700 t-shirt from Versace. Cole is looking like, why am I not good enough for the Versace t-shirt? Right? All of this instantly, there's this comparison, right? And all of a sudden, because I bought him the more expensive thing, it seems like he has more value. Does that make sense? How crazy that sounds? Like, that's just not a healthy way to think. But we do that, right? Like you get a pair of LeBrons and you like, yes, I am ready to hit the party tonight, right? I feel good, okay? But if you got a pair of sneakers from the dollar store, you just like, oh man, I hope nobody notices, right? But they cost 30 cents. They both cost 30 cents to make at a sweatshop in another country, right? The only difference is we have decided one gives us value and one doesn't. So just really, that's how I try to get young people to start to unravel that thinking of your value is determined by things or like titles and stuff. I know that's a long answer, but that's what I got.
No, that's great. We love that. It actually got me thinking about something that I had to do a presentation for in the English class, which was called the positivity bias. You talk about resiliency and like when you fall back, don't just think that, oh, that's it. That's the end of the line. You're done, right? You got to pick yourself back up and keep going. Positivity bias is kind of that same exact thing. It's believing that if we are pessimistic about the views, then we're not disappointed when something negative happens. And if we're positive about the views, we'll be more upset when like we don't get that positive outcome that we were hoping for. So I like to have that, mentality that's the opposite of that, so that you think failure is inevitable, it's going to happen, but when it happens, take it as an opportunity to find something that works, right? Failure is not failure. Failure is a way that didn't work, so find the way that did.
Yeah, Everett, and right on. So first of all, that's a great point. Whoever your teacher is awesome. This is the important thing about failure. I'm going to take what you just said one step further. Failure is part of the process. It's not something like, oh my gosh, I failed. Okay, let me dust myself off and try again. No, failure is part of the success. So like, you remember when y'all started learning to ride a bike? If you got a little brother or sister, you probably seen this, right? Somebody, your dad or your aunt or whoever's holding the seat, and their kid starts pedaling. Maybe it was you. You start pedaling, they let go. What happens? Bam, you fall down, right? You scrape your knee, cry a little bit, right? Get back up, you get back on the bike. They hold the seat, you start pedaling, you get a little further, and then you fall again. And on until you look up and you can go the whole block by yourself, right? Well, the falling off the bike is how you found the balance. It's actually part of there are no child prodigies that hop on a two-wheeler and start riding around popping wheelies on their pegs, right? Like the falling is part of that process. So in life, the failing is part of your process. Like the setbacks actually help you. They harden you. They teach you lessons that you couldn't have otherwise learned. So the failures actually are part of the process. So when we change that relationship, right, that we're like afraid of failure, like, no, if I fail, that means I'm growing, right? You can only be moving forward and growing to the next level if you're willing to fail, right? Like and I got analogies for days, right? So I'm a gamer, right? So I'm a heavy gamer, okay? Final Fantasy RPG style, but I also do 1v1 combat, anyway. So I'm a gamer. And when we were little, you remember the first type of games like Mario or Sonic. In order to go to the next level, you had to master the current level, right? And to prove you mastered it, you had to fight a boss at the end of the level. You had to learn a lesson and pass a test, right? And Dr. Robotnik was not easy. He was not coming to play, right? Those bosses were difficult. And you would lose and you would fail and you have to start over. And they didn't have a save button. So you had to start all the way over, right? You had to learn these lessons for real. But failing was part of the process because then when you got to the next level, you had learned something. You had grown, your character's stronger, whatever, like that. Like that's the mentality we got to get into, that the test, the failure, it's okay. It's okay, because when you look for new challenges, you're going to fail your way to success. And like the sooner young people learn that, because here's the problem with failure. It's not just that we're afraid of failure. We're so afraid we don't even reach for our full potential no more, right? So if Cole is like, hey, man, I want to be a professional volleyball player, he might be like, you know what? I don't know if I'm good enough. So instead of trying out for the Junior Olympic, volleyball squad, he tries out for the, pickup game at the local beach volleyball team, right? Intramural. Now, it's still fun. They're still having fun. They're still being competitive. But because he's so afraid he might fail, he doesn't reach as high as he possibly could. Does that make sense, y'all? So we got to stop that, right? Because Cole could be on the Olympic team representing us in Madrid, spiking that thing, but if he's so afraid to fail that he doesn't even try, then he's just on the beach, surf with the surfers, beating up on them in volleyball. We all miss out as a country. We missed the gold that year, right? So it's not just about overcoming that fear. It's about understanding fear and failure are all part of the journey.
I agree.
Yeah, and if we stay in that the area that we're comfortable in, like doing the tests, and we keep in that area, we're never going to succeed because success is uncomfortable. Like the process is uncomfortable, but when you get there, then you start to build that comfort again. But you won't succeed until you break the habit of being comfortable in your little square. You have to break that uncomfortable wall and get past it to success.
Absolutely. Listen, Cole, the most dangerous place you can live in is your own comfort zone. I remember when I was in college, my first year in college, I grew up in the inner city. Okay. I'm Black. I don't know for your listeners, I don't know if they're listening or watching. Okay. But I'm Black. All right. And I grew up in like an inner city in Buffalo. And when I went away to college down to Alabama. Okay. So when I come home for the summer from college, you want to see all your friends. Like, what's up? What y'all doing? Right. And in my neighborhood where I grew up, now we all grew up in the same neighborhood. 90% of the people are still doing the same thing. Right. They're still working crappy jobs, sitting on the porch for 9 hours a day, smoking and just acting a fool, just the same stuff we have been doing. Right. So I went away. And when I came back, I thought, they would be doing something different. But see, that's what they were comfortable in. In that space, they felt safe. They felt comfortable. I was scared to go to another state across the country to go to college. But overcoming that fear, stepping out my comfort zone, I was able to grow and thrive and have new opportunities. But if you stay in your comfort zone, that's where you're going to end up. And I tell young people, look around, look at your life. if that's what you want for the rest of your life, you stay in your comfort zone. But if you want to be in Australia, or you want to run with the Bulls one day, or you want to, own your own company, or whatever it is for you that thing is, there's no way you get there in your own comfort zone. There's no way. So that's a great point, Cole. And it's crazy that you're such a young person and you fully understand that, because a lot of young people don't like to take risks. Risk is scary. You get now with social, you get online bullied if you fail. Oh, Cole didn't make it, y'all. And they're all typing on TikTok and Snapchat. They're making little posts about you because you didn't get picked for this, or you know what I mean? So like young people nowadays, they really have a fear of like failure or kind of being embarrassed by not succeeding. So it's great that you already understand that like your comfort zone, that's not where you want to be. Maybe on the weekend when you're relaxing, like, hey, I want to relax somewhere where I know it's fun. Everybody knows my name, like cheers, right? But, when you want to grow as a young person, as a professional, as a student, you got to keep pushing your limits. That's the only way you can test to see how far you can go.
I agree. That's perfect. So we talked about like keeping that positive mind, and like when we get back, keep that positive mind and keep going forward. It's not the end. What are some keys that we can use to like keep that positive state of mind?
So you talked about the positivity bias. One thing I talk about in my talks is the negativity bias, right? We are more prone to focus on negative experiences than positive experiences. So let me give you an example. Everett's having a great day, okay? He just got like an A on the test. Homework is done for the whole week and it's Tuesday, right? This is a great day Everett's having, okay? A couple of his friends was cracking jokes today. I mean, it was just a good day, right? And then he's driving home, and on his way home, somebody cuts him off in traffic, right? And then not only do they cut him off and almost have an accident, they start yelling and cursing at him out their window, right? So now Everett gets home, and his whole energy is like destroyed, right? Like he's tense, right? You anxious, like that one experience just like messed up your whole vibration, right? Your whole vibe. And so that's the negativity bias, right? We are prone to lock in and focus on negative experiences. Some researchers say it takes 11 positive experiences to overcome one negative experience. Okay. So what a practice I had soldiers do, and now I have young people do, is called hunt the good stuff. And what it is every day you should take 5 minutes and identify 3 good things that have happened to you in the last 24 hours. Right? It's called hunt the good stuff. Now we call it hunt the good stuff because it ain't always easy, right? Some days are easier than others, right? Some days you got to hunt for those good things. But if you do it, it shifts your focus from everything else to positive things. You're creating your own positive energy and positive experiences. So when you have that setback, when you have that negative experience, it doesn't affect you the same as it would if you hadn't taken just those couple of moments to focus on those positive things that are happening in your life. It's like, maybe you have a grandma or somebody in your grandma's generation and they used to say, count your blessings, right? It's like that, but like Army science has proven that grandma was right. Okay. And that building that spirit of gratitude, like actually helps make you a more resilient, positive person.
I definitely agree with that. Sometimes it's not very easy to find the good things nowadays. It seems like everything's just negative, but there's still good things in the world that we can find in our everyday lives. And it's definitely something that we need to put into our daily habits, is finding the good things that happened in that day and not focusing on the negative. Because it seems like nowadays we're always focusing on the negative instead of focusing on the positive.
So Cole, let's do it right now. Let's hunt the good stuff right now. All 3 of us. Let's take turns naming 3 good things. I'm going to go first to model it, and then you guys can go next. How's that? All right. So 3 good things that have happened to me. There's a young man in a mentor program that I run at a private school here he was talking some trash in Madden, and I annihilated him last night, okay? He rage quit in the middle of the game, okay? It brought me great joy, okay? So that's 1. Number 2, my daughter got her second COVID shot, her vaccination shot today, so that was awesome. And she didn't cry, which also is a miracle because she don't like needles. And number 3, I was on time to the podcast today and that was awesome because I had a back-to-back meetings all day. So I was really happy I was able to make it work. So bam, 3 good things, right? I didn't name miracles. I didn't get a new job. I didn't meet Obama today, right? Just 3 good things that have happened, normal things. So why don't one of you guys go next?
Okay, I'm too.
You can go ahead.
All right. One good thing that happened today is I woke up. I had no plans before this podcast. I was just gonna chill around and kind of sit in that comfort zone that you talked about, just kind of sit around and relax. And then one of my friends that I haven't hung out with in a while texted me and was like, "Hey, let's go hang out before we." So we just went up the canyon, drove up, and then we drove right back down, and then I came over here. So that was pretty fun to just have a nice friend that I haven't talked to in a while, just spend some time with him. My mom, she bought me this shirt actually. I came home from, I think it was work on Saturday, and this was just laying on my bed. So she got me a new shirt. That's nice. And then I also got a raise at work. So I wasn't even expecting a raise. I just wanted more responsibilities. So that's pretty nice.
It's great. Let's see. I've yet to had COVID, so I think that's something that's always nice. I think something we always take for granted is waking up in the morning. All of us woke up this morning, and so that's definitely something that we can look at and think, oh, that's a good thing. Most people take that for granted. They go to bed and they're like, oh, cool, if I wake up in the morning, that's great. But it's like, that's something that we need to appreciate more, is waking up in the morning. And then I've just had a pretty good day so far. It's been definitely had a smile on my face all day. So I think that's my 3.
See, and that's the beauty of it. That's it. Those 3 good things, that's what comes to your mind. Great. Now move on. Back to your regularly scheduled programming, right? But if you do that every day, you will start to focus. So when something happens, you'll kind of register like, oh, that's one of my good things, right? You'll start to see things and it'll shift your focus. So it's just a really good exercise to build gratitude. And that's something everybody can do right now to start building that gratitude, to start building that resilience as we go through all these, setbacks and difficult times and adversity, like you all talked about when we started.
Yeah, so I'm going to pull up a story. I don't know, you might remember this, but we used to do scout camps, and every night at the fire, before we'd all go to bed, we'd do something called Happy Sad. And we'd have 2 happy things and 1 sad thing that happened. And we did the 2 happy things to make sure that, everybody in the group was having a better day. And we did 1 sad thing just to, know that sadness is going to be a factor, and that, whoever had the worst sad thing, we'd all try to help them bring them back and have a good time. So noticing those emotions and focusing on those good things, but also acknowledging what was bad felt really nice at the end of the day.
It's a great practice.
Do you have any advice to any teens who are facing any feelings of loneliness or depression or even if bullying?
Yeah, I'll say this. I never had to go through what teens now have to go through with social media. The social media puts another layer, on the bullying, because it's designed to connect us, and yet we feel more apart and alone, than ever in a lot of ways, right? So what I always tell to young people is start trying to practice being present. This is one of the lessons my mother taught me when I was a little kid, but I didn't understand it. I'm 12 years old. I don't, okay, Mom, right? But right, exactly. But she said, make every situation work for you. And I didn't get that. What she was saying was be present all the time, right? And what that means is if you look at your life right now, you're a teenager, you're 15, you're like, man, I can't go to my friend's house. After school's canceled, summer camp maybe canceled, whatever, COVID is impacting my life, whatever, right? And I'm just not, I'm in that funk, that type of funk mood where it's just like, right? You're just sitting there like, I don't feel like doing nothing, right? Think to yourself, in this moment, what can I do to bring myself some joy? Or what can I do to better myself for my future? And don't think about every possible thing in the whole world and 10 years down the road. No. Right now, in this moment, what can I do to bring me some joy? If that's go play football outside, go grab your football and go outside and start throwing the ball to somebody, right? If that's, preparing for college or starting to think about what's your purpose or what's your major, do that. But if you focus on the right now, in this moment, how can I bring joy into my life? How can I bring happiness? Now, this is not for the bullying. This is for if you're feeling isolated or if you're feeling kind of that loneliness, right? If you're feeling lonely and you're like, man, I wish I had somebody to talk to or somebody to laugh and joke with, right? What could I do in this moment to make that happen? Right? There are things you could do, right? Could call one of your cousins, right? Could you call on TikTok and say, hey, I'm bored. Who want to talk to me? Hey, I just watched this football game. I watched the fight last night. What do y'all think? Right? What can I do in this moment to solve my problem? That's the first thing you do at all times. So while I'm on this podcast, I'm being present. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing next. I'm thinking about right now in this moment, how can I help Cole and Everett and their listeners as best as possible right now? When I get to the podcast is over, I'll get to the next moment. But in this moment, you got to figure out what can you do now to be the best version of yourself or to bring yourself joy or happiness, and then do it. We just need the willpower to lean into the moment and do it. Now, if teens are facing bullying, obviously the first answer is talk to an adult. Okay. I know that like as you get older, that's less of an option, right? You're like, I don't want to be the kid that snitches, that type of deal. Okay. But that's always the first option is talk to an adult that you can trust, because you got to get somebody to stop that. The second thing I would say is understand that kid who's being a bully and all of that stuff, they have real issues going on in their life. They're not bullying you because you are a problem. They bullying you because they have a problem. It's hard to understand that when you're getting terrorized by somebody at your lunchroom, you know what I mean? Or you in class and somebody's secretly Snapchatting about you and, you're in high school, so this is your world. I get that that's, challenging. But understand that the people doing that, I'm 36. Looking back at the people in my high school who did that type of stuff, they ain't living no good life right now. It ain't like they're balling and they're living the dream. Like, no, they peaked in high school. That was it for them, right? So like, as you're going through it, like, it's a crappy phase, but, unfortunately we got to go through it. But of course, talk to an adult first. That's always number one. But number two, try to understand that this person has an issue. They got some pain they dealing with. And instead of them knowing how to process it or having a space to process it, their insecurities or their pain, they feel like if they put you down, it lifts them up. Does that make sense? So when you look at it, don't look at it from like, they're just mean. No, they're hurting and they need to be lifted up in a way. So, every situation is different, but that's generally, how, and once you start changing your thinking about it, you don't respond to the same way. Now I know Cole is struggling with something at home. I don't know it for a fact, but I know something's wrong because he's bullying me. So Cole starts bullying me. Hey, Duncan, nice tight shirt today. I'll be like, Cole, I hope everything's working out for you, man. You know what I mean? I hope everything's working. And you, with real empathy, like, listen, if you got to dump on me for you to get through the day, go ahead, man. I'll be your punching bag. I can take it. And all of a sudden, Cole gonna say, "Nah, man, it's not like that. I didn't really mean." You know what I'm saying? Like, it changes the energy when you look at it and you understand that they are hurting. They have an issue. No matter how pretty they are, how much of a jock they are, how great grades they are. If they're bullying someone, they are dealing with internal pain or pain at home. And so they're taking it out and projecting it on you. That's their issue. It's not yours. It's just, irritating you for the time being.
Yeah, it's like a hierarchy of like, I experienced this, so that means everybody else should too, right? So they bring out what their pain is to be shed upon everybody else. That way it feels lighter on them. And that's kind of unhealthy for both parties, because then one's getting like more negative energy and one's just trying to put a bunch of negative energy on everybody else. But there's no positive that comes from two negatives in that way, right? We'd like to thank the incredible Duncan Kirkwood for sharing his thoughts on resiliency and developing mental toughness. For more information about Duncan and his book Rerouting Resilience Tools and Tactics, visit www.duncankirkwood.com. You can also follow Duncan on Instagram at Duncan Kirkwood.
Remember, as Duncan says, live your life like a GPS. Once you program the destination you intend, no matter the obstacles you face, the wrong turns you make, the GPS will always say, rerouting.
There's an awesome show today. I'd like to thank my co-host Cole for being here.
Thank you, Everett, for having me.
And of course, a huge thank you to everybody for listening to this episode of the I Am Kind podcast. And remember, you matter.